When I started shopping this story around, I was met with tremendous amounts of skepticism. And finally, one day I told an editor that if a journalist came to him in 1965 and told him that J. Edgar Hoover was a closet homosexual and he was blackmailing Martin Luther King, the editor would have laughed the journalist right out of his office. There are some stories that are just so implausible and so exquisitely covered up that they can only be captured through a post-mortem. And this is one of those stories.
This is really a stunning mystery, a 24-year-old cold case involving a 12-year-old Iowa boy. He disappeared delivering newspapers. The boy's mother, who has held out hope all these years that he's still alive, says now that someone left photographs showing her son bound and gagged at the time of his disappearance, 24 years after he went missing.
Since Johnny's disappearance, Noreen has dedicated her life to finding the son she says is never far from her thoughts.
Because if I stop, there will be no one looking for this boy. No one. I'm his mother, and that's a commitment.
It is just yet another twist in a very bizarre case.
Such a torturous experience for his mother.
For the last 7 years, I've been investigating the cover-up of a child prostitution network centered in Nebraska. The guy who spearheaded the abduction of Johnny Gosch was affiliated with this ring.
Hey, how you doing? Come on in. Pitched to Rolling Stone, Harper's, the Atlantic Monthly, Vanity Fair, the New York Times Magazine. Everybody thought I was crazy.
I'm with Noreen Gosch.
They had Johnny in an abandoned house outside of Sioux City, Iowa for about 14 days. And then a man came from Colorado who they called the Colonel, paid the kidnappers, and then he basically bought Johnny.
What kind of things was Johnny involved in?
Prostitution, pornography pictures, molesting other kids at gunpoint like Paul did.
2 years ago, a convicted child molester surfaced and said he helped kidnap Johnny. He told an incredible... Noreen decided to meet him face to face, to confront the person who says he helped kidnap and sexually assault her son. Bonassi claims that an organized ring of pedophiles abducts children and forces them into a life of child pornography and prostitution, and that it happened to him.
And they force you to do things, and they photograph it, they film it. The whole purpose for that is to either blackmail you into staying with them or split your mind up so that you don't even remember who you are.
The FBI has been informed as to everything that has come out of Bonassi's mouth, and that was done by his attorney, John DeCamp.
I submitted it to them, and it was like a forbidden zone I'd entered where they won't even communicate on it or talk to you or even reply.
The reason the FBI won't discuss Bonassi is that they feel he is an uncredible witness because of his role in a sex scandal that rocked Omaha. In 1989, the Franklin Credit Union scandal burst into the headlines. Paul Bonassi was one of the witnesses who made shocking allegations of child sexual abuse by some of Omaha's most influential citizens.
A Republican from the Midwest, Lawrence E. King, is serving a 15-year prison sentence. The Franklin Federal Credit Union was a small people's bank in Omaha, Nebraska. Larry King was general manager.
Thank you. This is especially an exciting day for me.
From 1979, Larry King developed close commercial ties to Boys Town, and Boys Town youngsters were sent to work for his companies. Boys Town, Nebraska is America's favorite children's charity.
Located in the heartland of America, Boys Town youth have come from many backgrounds and locales.
King used Boys Town as a source of young boys for his business and for sex and drug orgies.
We didn't go to Nebraska with a conspiracy theory in our mind, hoping to prove it. We went to Nebraska to try and work out what happened, and we found a conspiracy of silence.
Hi.
Hi, is Father Val Peter available, please?
You can check in his office.
We're here because we have to give Boys Town every opportunity to talk to us about the very serious allegations.
Turn your recorder off. Please step outside.
Why is it that Boys Town is unwilling to discuss your relationship with Larry King?
We don't have a relationship with Larry.
I'm afraid papers that we possess show that Boys Town had a relationship with Larry King.
I just suggest you be very careful about what you report, Mr. Unless you leave, you will be arrested shortly. The police are on their way over.
Did you know that Larry King was taking boys out of Boys Town?
Oh, yeah. I don't think there was really nobody out there that didn't.
That didn't know that?
That didn't know that. I mean, they know they've had complaints probably every week on rape and molestation. And they know that.
Boys Town was supposed to help us, not destroy us. What's wrong with them? Well, they have to pick on kids. He took my dignity away. He hurt my self-esteem, my self-pride. I put needles in my arm every fucking day. I drink every day just to hide it.
Larry King was the facilitator. That was the man that was in charge. I mean, we flew with him on the trips, had flown to Chicago, was in a hotel room. I was dressed in a negligee. There were, I believe, prominent men, a lot of young boys at this hotel performing certain things sexually with other men, and men ejaculated or masturbated in front of me.
All the kids that I've talked to discuss that they were flown around on small planes, and I have hundreds of receipts. This one is going to Washington, D.C.
He would fly us to nice places or people's houses. There would be gentlemen there. They would like things done to them sexually, or they would like to do things to me sexually.
Some of the parties, when they started off, were straight political type parties with no sex.
So you were in the White House?
Yes.
How did you gain access?
Well, I came down with Larry King.
What time of night?
It was usually around midnight, and it was kind of a gift for our services that we were doing. And then when some of the men had left, some of the politicians had left, the ones that had planned on engaging in some type of sexual activity, that would come after the party.
And if Washington doesn't have enough to talk about these days, the Washington Times reported today that unidentified White House aides in the Carter, Reagan, and Bush administrations now are being investigated for using the services of a call boy ring. The paper reports that 2 of the male prostitutes were given a late-night tour of the White House last year. The White House press secretary, Marlin Fitzwater, said he knew nothing of this investigation.
Heat things, hot things, poked at you and stuck in you. Fruit, squash, huge squash, that big around, stuck into you, into your ass, and they made us stand there naked and touch each other. You'd light cigarettes, and as soon as you get burning, you just drop them down between your arms and, let it burn. It's on film someplace. I mean, they filmed it.
King would also provide underage girls for abuse. Alicia Rowan was 15 when she attended her first party.
Me handcuffed with my hands behind my head and my feet tied. Sometimes there'd be a guy straddling over my face. Okay. Most of the time, Larry King took pictures quite a bit during that time.
I believe that the FBI was brought in because I think one of the few law enforcement entities that had enough power, enough resources, and the wherewithal to be able to do such a massive cover-up.
In July 1991, Alicia Rowan was convicted of perjury.
For some reason, they had to send a signal to every kid who was a potential witness. A signal so loud and clear, if you dare to come forward, if you dare to talk, watch what happens.
people do react rather violently to some kinds of charges. You have to consider the possibility of some danger to not only your reputation, but to your person.
The anxiety level is almost unbearable at times. I think his civil rights have been violated unbelievably.
I feel so bad about it because of what they made me do.
These are all the people I've looked for. No one really cares about them. These are throwaway kids.
It's a web of intrigue that starts at our Holy of Holies, Boys Town, Nebraska, spreads out like a spider web to Washington, D.C., and the centerpiece of the entire web is the use of children for sex and drug dealing, the compromising of politicians, the compromising of businessmen, but worst of all, the corruption of key institutions of government that have the duty and responsibility to make sure these things never happen.
Bloggers play detective, some claiming a fake White House reporter and a missing boy possibly sold into the sex trade are one and the same. Ahead, the boy's mother tells Bo whether she thinks the phony correspondent is her son.
We're starting off with what could be a real explosive case today. An incredible story. Lisa, take us back to how this story all started.
All right, Bill, here's what we got. The story begins with an Iowa boy missing since 1982. Newspaper delivery boy Johnny Gosch disappeared, quote, under mysterious circumstances in West Des Moines. Now, some claim the boy was kidnapped, sexually abused, later sold into a child sex slavery ring, and then brainwashed by the CIA. They claim he was part of a government-sponsored mind and behavioral control program called the Monarch Project, trained to be part of a top-secret escort program. Now fast forward to the year 2005. That's where the story picks up. The internet was abuzz with word that a former White House reporter named Jeff Gannon, who worked for the Talon News, could be the missing 12-year-old. The claim is being based on alleged similar body markings and a lack of info about Gannon's early years. Also fueling the fire, Jeff Gannon was exposed in February to actually be a guy named James Guckert, a man with simply no journalism experience who had links to several gay escort addresses online. A private investigator has even gone so far as to publicly state that he believes Jeff Gannon is actually Johnny Gosch. Now, this is where Bo picks up the story. Bo.
So do we think Jeff Gannon could actually be Johnny Gosch? The missing boy's mother seems to think so. With us right now is Noreen Gosch. Also here is Andy Stevenson. He's the online investigator familiar with the Johnny Gosch case. And Andy was the first to reach out to Noreen Gosch to talk about this possible connection. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
All right. So as far as we're concerned here now, Noreen, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Noreen, when did you first come to your attention? When did it first come to your attention that this person, Jeff, could be your son?
It was in late February that I was contacted by Andy Stevenson, and he asked me if I was aware of the stories that were circulating on the internet. And I said I didn't know anything. I hadn't heard that. And he sent me an email explaining the situation and some of the blogs that were on the internet link and some photographs. And that's when I learned about it for the first time.
You know, Andy, as far as you're concerned, you were the online investigator. I mean, I read through some of these stories here. Some of them are knocking me off my feet with all these blogs about CIA, Chinese people, sex crimes, and children in sex duos and all kinds of things. Andy, what is fact and what is fiction? Because as far as I'm concerned, my investigations into these computer websites and all that, anyone can print anything.
Well, sure, anybody can print anything, but when you're backing it up with facts and you're doing the investigative work, you know, I don't like to say things unless they're true. So, you know, we have done a lot of the work. We don't know for sure whether Mr. Gannon is Johnny, but the photographic evidence is quite compelling, and there are several similarities between Johnny Gosch and Mr. Gannon.
You know, as far as Noreen, now this was your son. You say you saw her back in 1997? Did you see your son in 1997? Were you sure that was your son when you saw him? Were you sure that was your son?
In 1997, I was sure that that was my son.
Right. And then when he came to see you, what did he say to you?
When he came to see me, he told me how the entire network operated, that he was taken for the purpose of sex and for prostitution, and that he had names for me to give to authorities to begin to work on, hopefully to resolve the case. And I tried to convince him that he needed to be the one to go forward, and he was too afraid, too frightened to even do that. He was afraid that he would be killed.
Now, as far as, Doreen, as far as it goes, I have 4 children. I know what my 4 children look like. 1997 is 2005. If I was to see my sons or my daughters again and hadn't seen them in 7 years, I could recognize them. I mean, what's your feeling about if this is not, if it's Johnny or not? If Jeff is Johnny or not?
In 1997, I had Johnny in my living room for about 2.5 hours. I have never even been close to Jeff Gannon. All I have seen are very grainy photographs that came over the internet. I don't have anything for a real comparison other than the photographs.
You know,
Andy, go ahead.
Andy, as far as your investigation led to, now you put some substantial evidence. Did you do a background on this Jeff person?
We have looked into some records that came from Pennsylvania where Mr. Gannon / Guckert supposedly went to high school. We've looked at photographs, and some of them match, some of them don't. There's several photographs that look strikingly like Johnny Gosch, and there are some that don't even look like him at all.
You know, so reading some of this blog stuff, I mean, I've been really looking into this. They got Hunter Thompson involved with murders. They got this guy Jeff Dean involved in homicides. I mean, the more I read, the more I say to myself, you know, I remember reading about Hillary Clinton being bedded by a Martian in one of the online chat rooms also. So there's so much stuff that's out there that we cannot clarify, because putting stuff on the internet, anybody can put anything they want. There's no credibility as far as I'm concerned when you read something on the internet.
Well, Hunter Thompson, that came about because in a federal case that was in Omaha, Nebraska, one of the children that was taken,
right.
and Noreen will confirm.
We're gonna ask our guests to stick around. Now, coming up next, we'll be joined by a private investigator deeply involved with this case, and I got a little surprise for you out there. A surprise I got a call. There's Il Pristino's last night, and I got a phone call at 6:30, and I think it's going to help us clear up this case a little bit. Okay, we're back now trying to answer the question. Is Jeff Gannon actually an Iowa boy named Johnny Gosch? Missing since 1982. Back now, Johnny's mother, Mrs. Gosch, Noreen. Also, we have the internet investigator, Andy Stevenson, on the line here, too. Now also joining us is a retired chum of mine, New York City Detective Jim Rothstein. He's also been following the possible Gannon-Gosch connection. Welcome, Jim, on board here.
Well, thanks for having me on the show.
Okay, Jim, when did you get involved with this case?
I first got involved with it about 10, 11 years ago, and I've been following it ever since. And when this information started breaking, I found it quite interesting because there were some other things that had happened which goes back many, many years to when I was a detective with the police department that we had investigated at that time.
When you were with the New York City Police Department, you were involved in investigating a lot of these child molestation rings and all that, and this brought your attention to this. Am I correct, Jim?
Yes, it did, very much so, because some of the things that people spoof on is the intelligence or the government connection and this and that, and how weird some of these things are, how kids disappear and you'll never hear from them again and this. But we had many cases because we actually infiltrated this underground and were able to many times find the real identities of these people, and in cases we were able to return them back to society.
What to you, Jim, was the similarities between Johnny Gosch and Jeff? I mean, what made you really get up on this as far as being a detective? You've investigated 12 years. This guy just popped into existence when?
Really struck my interest was that when I had first called and started checking on him, I could see it was a typical thing where the investigations weren't done the way they should have been done. And then when a guy shows up in the White House or at press conferences without proper credentials and stuff, this rang a bell right off the bat as to stuff that I had seen when I was doing my investigations.
Noreen, you're the mother again. I mean, I still have a mother, 91 years old. I know what my kids look like. I know what my mother. You as a mother, your instinct as far as seeing him on television, what is your real, true feeling about this?
I do not know if Gannon is Johnny or not. Only a DNA test would provide that information conclusively.
Right. Now, where does the investigation go now as far as, Andy, where does the investigation go now as far as you're concerned?
Well, as Noreen said, I mean, without a DNA test or without Mr. Gosch or Mr. Gannon, I should say, confirming or denying it, you know, there's no way really to know. I mean, we've done all we can do until he either provides DNA or speaks out and says, no, it's not me.
Well, I talked to Jeff Gannon. Yesterday, I reached out. I had some people from MSNBC reach out to him. He knows me from the Imus show. He called me last night. I was at El Pastino, 6:30 last night. I stepped outside. I couldn't get him off the phone. He says to me, if everybody's looking for me, I got this ex-FBI guy, ex-New York City guy, why didn't they come to Washington? And I'm pretty accessible as far as he's concerned. He didn't sound like he was brainwashed, and he went further into this. He said to me that he feels for this woman, Noreen, as far as being a mother who doesn't have a child with her. And if anything, he feels the hurt that she's feeling now, thinking that he is the son. I kept him in conversation for quite a while, and then finally I asked him point blank. I said, well, why aren't you cooperating? Why aren't you talking? He says his lawyers have told him if he starts cooperating, starts answering one question, he's going to have to be answering all the questions. As far as he's concerned, and the way I feel about it, he possibly could be involved with some other things, and he doesn't want this to come to light. But as far as the only question I asked him point blank, I said to him, Jeff, are you Johnny? And he laughed and he said, all I know is I feel sorry for that poor woman, Noreen. As far as I'm concerned, he left the door wide open. We're going to be following through with him. And he keeps saying to me, if people want to talk to me, why aren't they talking to me? And my feeling being a detective, with all respect back to my former detective partner over there, I feel as though this guy wanted to talk to us.
Well, Bo, could I just interject a second here?
Yeah, please, guys.
We did have somebody go down to talk to him, and the minute he mentioned the lady from Iowa, he slammed the door in their face.
You know what? Here's what we're going to do. I've opened it. I got his home number. I got his cell number. What we're going to do is stay on top of the story. It's not over yet. Thank you, everybody.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Deedle and Daniels Show. This is a story 23 years in the making. On our first show, we told you about a missing Iowa boy, Johnny Gosch. He was kidnapped back in 1982. His mother, Noreen, was here to tell her side of the story.
You are obsessed with this story, I know. Today we have the man who may know what happened to little Johnny. Some claim that former White House reporter Jeff Gannon may actually be the missing boy. So right now, let's take a look back at how the story got started. Johnny Gosch vanished from his West Des Moines, Iowa neighborhood without a trace. The newspaper delivery boy was on his morning route when he disappeared. One theory, the boy was kidnapped, sexually abused, sold into a child sex slavery ring, and brainwashed by the CIA. Some claim Gosch was snatched for the Monarch Project, a government-sponsored mind and behavioral control program designed to create top-secret escorts. The story then picks up in 2005. The internet was abuzz with word that former White House reporter Jeff Gannon may in fact be Johnny Gosch. The claim based on similar body markings and a lack of information about Gannon's early years.
We have looked into some records that came from Pennsylvania where Mr. Gannon / Guckert supposedly went to high school. We've looked at photographs, and some of them match, some of them don't. There's several photographs that look strikingly like Johnny Gosch, and there are some that don't even look like him at all.
In February, Gannon was exposed. His name actually James Guckert, a man with no journalism experience whatsoever, who had links to several gay escort services online. And joining us right now from Davie, Florida, the man at the center of the controversy. You're looking at him, former White House reporter Jeff Gannon, who watched our show and Bo's interview and wanted to come on and chat, and we appreciate that, sir. So, Jeff, here's what Noreen Gosch said on our last show. Let's listen, and then I'm going to ask you to react.
I do not know if Gannon is Johnny or not. Only a DNA test would provide that information conclusively.
Jeff, one question for you. Let's get right to the point. Are you willing to take a DNA test and settle the controversy once and for all? Yes or no?
Absolutely, I would definitely take a DNA test, but that isn't even necessary because there's so much evidence available to disprove these accusations.
That's a yes, then.
Well, he's saying yes. My friend Jeff is saying yes.
As a lawyer, I can smell a
No.
hitch.
You got to understand something. My friend here, Jeff, who's come on our show today, didn't do anybody else's show. He's going to tell us the facts. Jeff, how old are you, first off?
I'm 48 years old.
48 years old. My man Johnny Gosch there would be 35 years old. Lisa,
why are
the numbers.
You avoiding the question?
No. He just said, hey Jeff, you said you would take a DNA. I could set this whole thing up, but let's get to the point. The point is, by giving a DNA sample, there could be opening up some other avenues of things that I kind of know that you possibly could be involved, and I don't knock it. Again, if you want to go suck on a Johnny Pump or whatever you want to do, you could do in this world. But the point is, all we're here for is to show that my friend Jeff is not Johnny Gosch. Jeff?
There are dozens of people who have known me most of my life that could definitely vouch for the fact that I am not this person. Look, what happened to this child and the suffering that his mother has endured is a tragedy. But it's also been very difficult for me and my family, my real mother and members of my family who have had to listen to these fabrications being spread in newspapers, on television, and on the internet.
All right, so I'm going to ask you a question, not Bo. Jeff, are you willing to take a DNA test, yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes. When I cut my finger yesterday, there was plenty of DNA available. You should have stopped by.
What else you want, Lisa?
Are you his lawyer?
No, excuse me. He's my friend Jeff down there. Jeff, thank you for coming on the show again. You know what we're doing here? All this conspiracy stuff on the blogs, on all these internets, what we're doing is we're cutting to the chase now. Again, I don't understand why, and you said it to me over the phone, and you said that you feel sorry for Noreen. You feel sorry for her missing her son, and you wouldn't put her through if you were her son. And
You're
you said you're 40.
In his mouth,
he says
Bo.
he's
Jeff,
40.
Let's hear from him. What did you think when you saw Noreen Gosch? Let him speak. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I feel that this woman is being used by people who are trying to promote themselves as being investigators when they're not. They're fabricators. They've defamed me and put this woman through unnecessary pain, giving her hope where it doesn't exist.
Jeff, you tell them. And I'm going to tell you something right now, Jeff. If we want to shut everybody's mouths up, I'll arrange with you a little DNA, give me a little blood, a little saliva, whatever you want to do, and then we'll get a little from Noreen, and we'll see, and we'll show them it doesn't match, and then everyone will keep their mouths shut and let you get on with your life. Because as far as I'm concerned, whatever you do in your life, if it's not a crime involved, whatever you want to be involved with, I don't really care. What I care about is people making up stories about other people and making you live now on the edge of your life.
Here's my question. Jeff, have you reached out to Noreen? What have you told her?
I have not been in communication with this woman because I can't determine whether some of the emails I'm getting are actually this woman or not. There are hundreds of people that are contacting me about this story. I have no idea who they are. Nameless, faceless people making wild accusations.
Do you have a pen and paper? Because I can give you her phone number right after the show. Bo, are you on a payroll?
No, I'm not on a payroll. But when a guy is falsely accused, you got to stand up for innocent people. You're an attorney. You understand that, too. The man is going to give his DNA. The man is 48 years old. Johnny Gosch would be 35 years old. He looks 48 years old. I'm 54 years old. He looks 48 years old. Why can't the guy be telling the truth?
How about we talk about Gannon-gate? Jeff, are you on any type of payroll, White House, Republican?
Absolutely not. Never. I have been in the past or now.
Can you understand why people would think that you're not always telling the truth? Your name isn't what you said it was. Then the liberal blogs come out and say that there's a different story. You resign. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but can you see that people may not know that you're telling the truth here?
Well, I think people who are listening to nameless, faceless people making accusations on the internet, I'm sitting here in front of your cameras today to answer your questions. Where are these people? These people hide behind screen names on the internet. I'm here. I'm willing to give the evidence and tell my side of the story. Frankly, I haven't had the opportunity to tell my side of the story. Any time that I've made appearances, people have protested my appearance, tried to shout me down. I had to go 6-on-1 2 weeks ago at one event. It's my turn. Why don't people believe me as opposed to some of these other people?
Your friend Bo Dieter believes you. I want to thank you very much for coming on the show today and clearing this thing up. We'll do this DNA thing, and I'll make my friend Lisa here see that you are in fact who you say you are.
And Noreen Gosch, we did invite to come on to the show, but she refused. I want to thank Jeff Gannon and his lawyer Bo Dieter for coming on the show.
Well, today marks 35 years since Johnny Gosch disappeared from West Des Moines, a story most Iowans know well. Gosch was abducted September 5th, 1982, when he was just 12 years old. He was delivering newspapers when he disappeared. The Gosch case is still considered an open cold case, periodically reviewed by police.
Today marks 40 years since Johnny Gosch went missing. The 12-year-old boy on his paper route vanished. All of that left behind wagon and a few newspapers. It's one of the most prolific cold cases in American history. KCCI Scott Carpenter live where Gosch went missing at 42nd and Marquardt for us tonight. Scott.
Yeah, James, this is the spot. It's the last confirmed sighting of Johnny Gosch. Now, although this suburban street looks like many others across the country, those who live here will tell you it's quite different.
You really can't fathom what happened or who did it.
40 years since Johnny Gosch went missing, and there are more questions than answers.
They found his wagon in this driveway.
Neil Batke moved into this house 8 years ago. He says it's shocking that a 12-year-old boy can just disappear. All they have is theories as to what happened to Johnny.
I think he's alive. I think he's, whether good or ill, he's living his life.
So this particular case, it is still open and active at this time.
Sergeant Jason Heitz with West Des Moines Police says officers are still working this case and the public is still calling in with tips.
It's probably one of the most nationally recognized cold cases out there.
Although Sergeant Heitz can't share details of the ongoing investigation, he says Johnny's disappearance changed the nation. Iowa passed a law mandating police respond immediately to reports of missing children, but what they need now is somebody to come forward.
Somebody knows something out there. It does become increasingly difficult as the years go by. People are aging, some people are deceased now that may have knowledge of that case. So there are things that we follow up on to the best of our ability, but we never want to close that door.
Meanwhile, this street has stayed the same. For those who live here, there's still different questions and theories, but they all have the same grief for Johnny's parents, who didn't get to see their boy grow up.
It is an extension of you. It's an extension of both of you, and when that is gone, part of you is gone. Part of you has died.
Now, as far as those tips that West Des Moines police get called into them, they heavily vet those to see if there's any credibility. If they find a tip to be credible, well, they add it to the book, and the work keeps going. We're live in West Des Moines. Scott Carpenter, KCCI 8 News, Iowa's news leader.
And Johnny Gosch is one of thousands of kids missing who never came home. Two other boys in our area, Eugene Martin, Mark Allen, disappeared within a couple of years of Johnny under similar circumstances in the city of Des Moines. Neither of those cases have ever been solved either. And tonight we take a even more in-depth look at the disappearance of Gosch. KCCI will air a 1-hour primetime special on the anniversary of his disappearance. Searching for Johnny 40 years later airs right here tonight at 7 p.m. on KCCI.
Well, it has been 41 years since Johnny Gosch disappeared in West Des Moines. Gosch was a 12-year-old paper boy for the Des Moines Register. He vanished while working his route. 11 years ago, Noreen Gosch, Johnny's mother, told Local 5 she has never given up looking for her son and kidnappers, and never will. His disappearance inspired her to fight to make changes to laws, eventually bringing about the Johnny Gosch Law.